Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
It's our technology unit for today. And today, we're going to talk about e-cash or e-money. And the title of our article today is Calling It Quits with Cash. Are we going to get rid of cash and do our transactions electronically from now on?
Well, I was telling you before we started, Tom, I do not like this idea. It takes away our freedom. You know, if all of our money is electronic, someone could, hack in. It's very easy to hack into anything these days and take our money. I want real hard cash.
I think that's the way a lot of people here in Taiwan feel.
Yeah.
Although you can pay for your bus ride and your train ride with your EZ card. But for a lot of transactions, you got to have the cold, hard cash.
Yeah.
And people have told me over and over, yes, we Taiwanese, we just got to have the cash, We don't trust any other forms of transaction.
Yeah.
And a lot of places in Taiwan, even here in Taipei, don't accept credit cards. You got to pay with cash.
True.
When I bought my latest camera down on Bo'ai Lu, Bo'ai Road,
I do.
I asked, can I pay with plastic?
No.
Can I 刷卡? 不行,要现金, 一定要 cash. You must have cash. That's the only way we will accept payment.
That's right. When Tom and I are recording different jobs, we ask for cash. That's how we do it. Except for here, we accept, our monthly payment. But for small jobs, I want cash. And we do have that saying, cold, hard cash just means real money. Dollar bills and coins. And if you don't trust that, then you need to get yourself some gold.
Yeah, that reminds me of a song from a Madonna song. I think it was The guy with the cold, hard cash is always Mr. Right. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But in any case, let's talk about this today. Calling it quits with cash. We're going to be talking specifically about the examples of Denmark and Sweden. And so if you're going to those places, you might expect to pay for everything using cards and stuff like that. Yeah. But we'll find out about this right now. Let's read our lesson, and then we'll come back to discuss it. A famous saying states, money makes the world go round. But for money, humans would never have been able to create a complex economy that offers millions of products and services. In ancient times, people used common objects, such as shells, to pay for goods. Over the years, this evolved into the cash we use today. Nowadays, many countries are moving away from physical money altogether, preferring to use electronic payments instead. There are several benefits to having a cashless society. For starters, it saves governments and companies a lot of money. Believe it or not, it actually costs nations millions of dollars to process cash and check transactions. Banks spend a lot on security to protect large sums of cash so that criminals can't steal them. Similarly, studies show that crime drops when people carry less cash, as thieves cannot steal it from them. Using electronic payments also makes it easier for governments to track financial activity and collect taxes. Two nations that are leading the way to a cashless future are Denmark and Sweden. Today, less than 25% of Danes use cash when shopping. They are so hooked on electronic payments that they even use credit cards to pay for hot dogs and sodas. Sweden, the first nation in Europe to print money, is even less reliant on cash. In fact, the country hopes to become a completely cashless society by 2030. In its capital, Stockholm, city buses and some retailers refuse cash payments. Even street vendors prefer electronic payments. One reason for the switch is the emergence of apps such as Swish that allow people to use their cell phones like a credit card. Swish users can even transfer money to each other within seconds. Although cash is still in use, its days certainly are numbered.
Okay, guys, we're going to dig into our technology article. It's called Calling It Quits with Cash. It's kind of a fun name, Calling It Quits with Cash. When we call something off or call it quits for something, it's a phrase we use to say, We used to do something, but we're not doing it anymore. We often use it to talk about like a guy and a girl. They've been dating for a while, and you hear some gossip that Tom and Susie are calling it quits. It means they're breaking up. They're not going to go out anymore. Maybe you've been pursuing a sport. Maybe you're a great tennis player, but you don't have as much time anymore because you're working a lot, and maybe you're calling it quits. You're not going to play tennis as much as you did in the past. So calling it quits, like we said, is to stop doing something. What are we stopping here, Tom?
What are we stopping?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Maybe war and famine and stuff like that. Well, we'd like to stop that kind of stuff. But what we're actually calling it quits with is cash. The money in your pocket that you carry around with you every day. The 100 NT dollar bill, the 500, the 1,000, plus the coins, 1 NT, 5 NT, 10 NT, and 50 NT. Those, of course, all are cash, kinds of cash.
Do you know one question I've asked a lot of my Taiwanese friends here is, what do you guys call the dollar bills or the bills, the paper money? And nobody has ever given me a good, word for that. They just say 零钱. But for me, 零钱 is everything, right? Just like cash is everything. What do you call the bills? So when you're dealing with the paper money, not the coins, not the metal, the paper money, we call that bills.
I thought it was just chow piao. I thought that's what bills are. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But in any case here, let's begin our lesson here and not talk about money so much. Of course, I'd love to talk about...
We are talking about money today.
Yes. I like talking about money even more than I like talking about food. But in any case, we've got to focus on our lesson here. Here's the first paragraph. It says, a famous saying states, money makes the world go round. That's true. No money, no honey. I've heard that before,
And what does that mean?
It means, guys, if you want to have a girlfriend or get married, you got to have the cold, hard cash because girls aren't stupid. They're not going to marry some poor slob. So get busy, get good grades, get a high-paying job, and you can get the girl. But in any case here, let's move on here to the next sentence. It says, but for money, humans would never have been able to create a complex economy that offers millions of products and services. So, but for money. If it weren't for money, if we did not have money, then we would not have all this stuff here. We would not have been able to create this complex economy. Economy just refers to a system in a country or in the world in which people produce wealth and products and stuff like that. It involves production and the consumption of goods and services.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to that beginning of the second sentence because we don't often see this structure, but for something. And then what follows is what happens because of that one thing. I could say, but for my candy bar in my hand, I would have gone without food for the whole day. Meaning, if I hadn't had that candy bar, I would have starved. So, but for money, without money, the following would have happened. But thank goodness we've had money. Because we do have a really complex economy, right? We don't just operate with cash. Back in the old days, they used to trade things. You give me your cow, I'll give you, I'll give you a pig. Something like that.
A box spring mattress or something like that.
That's trade. And then we got money introduced into economies, and that's made things a lot easier. But now we're going electronic, and it scares me, Tom.
Yeah, I don't really like this idea either because, the Russian hackers are out there.
Yeah.
And you never know what the North Koreans are up to. So I don't know if I want to put my trust into a government, and it could be hacked by pretty clever hackers.
Oh, yeah, easy.
On the Korean peninsula there, on the northern part, I should say. But in any case here, yes, indeed, we do have this complex economy, and we've got millions of products and services at our disposal. And in ancient times, people used common objects, such as shells, to pay for goods. Now, I've heard of that. Clams or shells or things like that. Actually, we do have the slang term clams, meaning for money, although it's not used that often. But basically, yes, these were modes of exchange that we used in the past. Shells, maybe I don't know, nuts or things like that. I'm not sure. Pieces of gold, pieces of silver.
Well, metal is a lot more, I don't know, it's worth a lot more, you could say. That's why some people are now collecting silver and gold instead of cash. Now, let's move on to the next sentence. It says, over the years, instead of trading for common things and using shells or even some sort of metal to pay for it, we've evolved into using cash, and that's what we're using today. When you evolve into something, it means you change from one thing to another. So we've gone from shells and trading, bartering with different products, and we've evolved into cash. Nowadays, many countries are now moving away from physical money altogether. That physical money, of course, is the cold, hard cash you can put in your pocket or put in your purse to carry around with you to pay for things. Physical just means it's something you can grab and hold on to.
Indeed. So, yes, of course, shells have become cash that we use nowadays. As I mentioned earlier in the program, the coins and bills that we use. And nowadays, many countries are moving away from physical money altogether.
Yeah.
As you said, physical means something you can actually put your hands on.
Right.
And we prefer to use electronic payments instead. Electronic is something that has to do with small computers, basically, and microchips and transistors. Don't confuse this with electric or electricity. Electric or electricity refers to the actual power source. Like here in Taiwan, most of the electricity is generated by nuclear reactors, 1, 2, and 3. And in this particular case, though, electronics basically use electricity, but then they use transistors, like I said.
Yeah, an example could be maybe some of you guys shave with a razor, but you could buy the kind you just hold in your hand, and it's not electronic. It needs no electricity or batteries. My dad just shaves with a razor blade.
Me too.
But a lot of guys have chosen to use those electronic razors that you plug into the wall. So you're plugging it in, you're using the electricity to run it. Well, that's our first paragraph, guys. This is probably a good time to take a break. So that's what we're going to do, and then we'll be right back.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 我们今天首先来看到，在空格第一个后面的句子写着Blank 1, money. Humans would never have been able to create a complex economy that offers millions of products and services. 其实在这里呢，谈到的就是电子支付的这件事情，而钱很重要咯。那么怎么样钱人类呢是没有办法创造像这样子的一个复杂的经济制度。我们首先来看到第一题的 A 选项 But for 后面可以加名词，解释成为若非要不是。 B due to 因为。 C except for 除了什么之外。 D instead of 取代，要不是钱也不会有我们现在所看到的 a complex economy 复杂的经济制度。所以第一题搭配文意，我们的标准答案就选择 A but for。 第二题Over the years, this blank to the cash we use today. 其实要搭配前面的文句说，在古时候呢，我们是用贝壳来支付货品，但是 over the years, 在这么多年以来，怎么样 the cash we use today 这样子的方式呢，是在我们今天所使用的现金。我们来看一下第二题的 A 选项 stemmed from起源于。 B indulged in 沉迷于。 C yearned for 思念渴望。 D evolved into 逐步形成进化的意思。所以在这么多年以来，那么贝壳呢就被取代成为我们今天演化成为我们今天所使用的现金的样子了。而在这一段的最后面提到了今天的关键字词 electronic payments 就是称之为电子支付。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson. Here in the second paragraph, it says, there are several benefits or advantages to having a cashless society. Cashless means no cash, without cash. For starters, or to begin with, it saves governments and companies a lot of money. So that's one of the benefits. For starters, we use this phrase when we talk about the first thing that we're going to mention.
Yeah, for starters, you could actually use this to talk about a meal. A starter is like your hors d'oeuvre, that gets you started, gets your mouth watering for more food. But here, we're not talking about a meal. We're talking about a list of things that you want to go through. For starters, it does this, and it also does this. So you're listing different things. So for starters, having a cashless society can save government and companies a lot of money. That's not a strong enough reason for me. I'm sorry. I don't care if our government saves money. Most governments waste money. So they're used to wasting money. So I don't care about that reason. They say, though, believe it or not, it actually costs nations millions of dollars to process cash and check transactions. I actually do believe that.
Makes sense here. A transaction, of course, is when people buy things. I give you money, and then you give me that product or service. That is a transaction. And banks spend a lot on security to protect large sums of cash so that criminals can't steal them. So yes, they spend a lot of money on security, safety measures to protect those large sums or amounts of cash. The word sum here means the amount. A sum could also be the total of addition. The sum of 2 plus 2 is 4, for example. And they're doing this so that criminals cannot steal those large sums of cash. That makes
but criminals can hack in and steal that way. So we spend just as much, if not more, money on getting our computers so that they're secure and that they're not as easily hacked into. But we've got some pretty smart hackers out there, people who are trying to get into your computers.
They get in, too.
People have got into yours, huh?
Yeah, I got what was called ransomware or something like that. Luckily, I had things backed up, so I didn't have to pay them the ransom. But in any case, these things can happen. And similarly, or in a similar way, studies show that crime drops when people carry less cash, as thieves cannot steal it from them. Okay, so if you're not carrying cash, that means a robber cannot get the money from you. But if I were a robber and I found out that my victim didn't have any cash, I would probably be very frustrated and beat them over the head with a large stick.
No, you get into their wallet, you take their ATM card, and you threaten them until they give you their PIN, their personal identification.
Hey, give me some ideas.
See, I know.
Hey, so maybe I can make more money doing that than this.
Tom, you want to obey the law. You don't want to be a thief.
Just kidding, of course.
So there are other ways to steal besides just getting their cash. A lot of people are wearing rings, maybe a wedding ring of gold and diamonds. Thieves will often take those things as well.
Yeah, always take fake jewelry. That's good advice. And using electronic payments also makes it easier for governments to track financial activity and to collect taxes. If you track something, you just keep track of it. You follow it. You find where it's going and stuff like that. Financial just has to do with finances, getting money to pay for things, borrowing money from the bank and stuff like that.
And of course, if we turn to all electronic transactions, you can no longer hide the extra money you make from those transactions you make where you just take cash but you don't report it. Yeah, so the government's going to know exactly how much you make every year. Think about that. Now, two nations that are leading the way to a cashless future are Denmark and Sweden. So those are those cold countries way up north.
Exactly, and money gets cold up there, so they're sick of holding on to it, and they want a cashless future so that they can continue to eat their Danish pastries and their hot dogs at IKEA.
They're Swedish meatballs. That's the famous dish that they sell at IKEA. And listen, guys, I want you to know the proper pronunciation for that store that sells furniture you put together is IKEA, not IKEA. Be careful.
Okay, whatever. But in any case, I don't think you have to worry about not having cash if you go to IKEA, whatever it's called.
IKEA.
Because it's here in Taiwan, they're going to keep accepting cash. But in Sweden and Denmark, they're leading the way to a cashless future. Today, less than 25% of Danes, a Dane is a person from Denmark, 25% or less than that figure use cash when shopping. So most Danes don't carry cash with them, and they are so hooked on electronic payments that they even use credit cards to pay for hot dogs and sodas. If you're hooked on something, you could also say you are addicted to something. It means you're just so used to that and you got to do it that you just have to have this. Some people are hooked on cigarettes, for example, or hooked on using their smartphones. They just can't put them down, etc., etc.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, is Sweden was actually the first country or nation, that's an alternative word for country, the first nation in Europe to print money. Before that, it was just, we just used coins that were actually valuable in some sort of metal. Well, it's even less reliant on cash, meaning it doesn't rely on cash. So reliant is the adjective. Now, in fact, the country hopes to become a completely cashless society by 2030. That's pretty fast. Woo!
Very soon indeed. So the Russian hackers and the North Koreans are working on ways to hack their system right now as we speak. Yeah, indeed. Oh, of course, they know about it.
Well, I know.
But in its capital, Stockholm, of course, that's the capital city of Sweden, city buses and some retailers refuse cash payments. So if you want to ride the bus in Stockholm, you better do some research because using, Swedish kronar, using the coins there, it's not going to work. They're going to say, sorry, you got to walk or ride a bicycle. So maybe they've got the equivalent of an Easy card there or something like that.
Yeah, well, even street vendors there in Sweden prefer electronic payments. Vendors are people who are selling things usually on the side of the street. We've got vendors along the sidewalks here who run when the police come. Anyway, those are vendors. One reason for the switch is the emergence of apps that we use on our phones, such as Swish. This particular app allows people to use their cell phones like a credit card. I've seen that used a lot. Now, if you switch something, you take one thing and you replace it with something else. For example, I could say, hey, Tom, I'm switching partners tomorrow. So you're going to be working with someone else, not me. We're switching.
Oh, no.
So they're going to
I can't work with anybody else.
I know.
How could you do that?
And the emergence of something just means when something is first introduced to the market. The emergence of apps, they've started to be sold and they've become more and more popular. Something that emerges is suddenly coming out from being hidden or not being known.
Indeed, to emerge is the verb. And again, back to the word switch here. You were talking about the verb form, but here it's being used in the noun form. The act of switching from one thing to another. So one reason for this change or for this switch is because these apps have come out. They have emerged. And they include things like Swish, S-W-I-S-H, and this particular app allows people to use their cell phones like a credit card. People can use their cell phones like a credit card. You just kind of stick it up to the sensor, it makes a beep, and your transaction is complete.
Yeah, it's kind of a quick way to make a transaction. So I haven't used Swish. I want to say Swish myself, but these Swish users can even transfer money to each other within seconds. You kind of just have your phones next to each other and that transaction can happen. Now, although cash is still in use, and I sure use cash, its days certainly are numbered. But I think we all need to really examine this issue. Don't make a quick change before you realize what the consequences will be. Cash is important.
Yep, your days are numbered. Something's going to happen really quickly. And think about this, everybody. Is Taiwan going to become a cashless society? Only time will tell. That brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
接着我们来看到第3个空格 There are several blank 3 to having a cashless society 在这里谈到呢有这样子无现金的社会是有许多的什么呢？如果你看到后面的文章谈到其实要处理钞票检查交易还有身上带了很多的现金又不太安全其实如果是没有现金的话是有很多的好处的。第3题的 A 选项 Institutes 机构 B Benefits 好处益处 C Exceptions 例外 D Appliances 器具装置按照后面段落的文意如果不带现金的社会呢是好处多多所以搭配文意第3题的标准答案我们选择 B Benefits 接着来看到第4个空格的句子 Using electronic payments also makes blank 4 easier for governments to track financial activity and collect taxes那么使用电子支付的好处还包括对于政府来讲可以比较容易来 track 来追踪这些金融的活动还有来 collect taxes 来收税在这里要考考同学们文法观念我们用虚主词it 来代替后面的不定词片语 to track financial activity and collect taxes 所以这一题的标准答案第4题答案就选择 B It. 接着第5个空格我们来看看瑞典这个国家 Sweden, the first nation in Europe to print money is even less blank 5 on cash 在这里呢我们看到后面的文章讲到呢瑞典希望到了西元2030年的时候可以成为一个完全无现金的社会 a completely cashless society 所以他们对于现金的态度是如何呢第5题 A hostile 有敌意的 B feeble 虚弱的 C reliant依赖的 D obedient 服从的既然希望以后是完全无现金所以对于他们来讲对于现金的依赖性是比较少的搭配第5个空格前面的 less 比较不在这里我们标准答案就选择 C reliant 他们是比较不依赖现金这样子的东西的接着来看到第6个空格 One reason for the switch is the emergence of apps such as Swish blank 6 people to use their cell phones like a credit card 在这里要请同学特别注意一下这里有个插入句 such as Swish 在这里我们要略过不看而是呢后面有一个子句要来修饰前面的 apps 其实呢会有这样子的一个转变呢就是因为呢其中一个原因有一些应用程式 apps 的出现而这些应用程式呢可以让人们呢去使用他的手机就像当成信用卡一样的使用它在这里呢我们要修饰前面的 apps 用形容词子句的方式 that 再加上动词 allow somebody to do something 也就是允许让某人可以做某事所以搭配文法跟句意第6题的标准答案我们就选择 D that allow 第7个空格 blank 7 Cash is still in use. Its days certainly are numbered. 如果我们讲到某个人的日子呢，可以被计算的出来，代表他的时日肯定是不多了。所以尽管虽然你看到现在大家还在用现金，但是他的日子肯定是不多了。搭配文意第7题的标准答案，我们就选择 C, although. OK, 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for listening to our program. We so much appreciate it. And please join us again next time. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.